I had a conversation with a member of our association, and he was just he was considering that, actually.
And there are more restaurants who are going to a cash-only system.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But they're afraid of doing that because they know that they're bucking a consumer trend of using plastic.
Right.
I mean, here's a quote from, I'm not sure I bought this one. I didn't bring it. It was a quote from one of my members saying, people are proud of their plastic. They're proud of it. They don't carry cash. So those restaurants that are going to cash only, which is ironically the way it was,
Yeah.
15 years ago, they've had to go. I can remember when quick service restaurants converted and added plastic. I mean, I've cut my teeth in the fast food industry.
I thought it was rather ludicrous. You go to Burger King and use your debit. I thought, what's that all about?
But that's
It's
a
routine.
market-driven
Yeah, yeah.
decision. So that decision to go away from that is a real double-edged sword.
And the places like when we go to where we go in Florida to for our vacation, the restaurant that we go to all the time down there, they just have ATM on site, just like y'all were talking about.
Yeah.
They put it in the back and just, they let you know way up front, hey, we got an ATM, go back there, just
Right.
get whatever you need, but it's gonna be cash on.
Right.
And you look at business, and I'm sure it's the same with the independent farmer system, with the restaurant association. For the people that, in our association, these fees are sometimes are only right behind labor or utilities. It's the second or third highest cost they have in operating their business. It's a huge amount of money.
Well, Ted, I know you've talked to some of our, like, banking association, people like that. What are their comments, what are their thoughts
Well,
about this?
mostly what I've heard is during the earnings presentations and how they feel they got hit last summer with this opt-in, opt-out on the overdraft. That's taken a pinch where they were making some money off of people who were overdrafting, and they liked that cash flow. They lost that because now you can opt out of being hit with that, and just if you go to a place like your restaurant, they can just say, well, we can't take your plastic because and so they got hit by that, and now they're looking, a typical one, I think I listened to Regions say that they were looking at about somewhere over $50 million, anticipating if these caps came in at the 12 cents, that would be what they would lose. Now, I'm assuming that's annually. This was a quarterly financial, but a smaller bank, I believe Trustmark put theirs in the $4 to $5 million range and that's money, and if you listen to the bank's earnings statements, especially the small regionals in Mississippi, that considering their other conditions they're operating under, that's mighty important to their margin, that money they get. So I'm sure that's the case they're making, and that's how it's become in a lot of the discussion of it. It's more become a small bank and versus merchants type issue. When, as you say, if it's a $16 billion industry, $12 billion of that, I understand, or something like that, is going to the 5 biggest banks or whatever, and so it's. They just feel, just like you guys, that they're operating on a thin margin in historically bleak times, and that once they start this, once the 12 cents goes into play. But you brought up something, and it just seems to me that it's the economics of it, that even if you're at 12 cents, if you're using that, if that volume has dramatically increased every year, then even at 12 cents, it would seem that, okay, you're getting less per transaction, but you're having those transactions are more and more.
Right.
And that, I'm wondering, I didn't cover this issue as Senator Durbin was deciding to offer the amendment, but I wonder how much of that he heard, that we're having more transactions than ever, but the fees are climbing as well. It seems like that's defying, as you called it, a phenomenon. It's defying some basic economics. To me, it is.
Right.
I don't.
I would suspect that Senator Durbin and many of the other senators got that message loud and clear. And I think if you look at what's happening at the fundamental basis of what's happening, it's contradictory to what every economic model is. And I think that's the red flag that has to be flown. I said, wait a minute, if in fact the volume of transactions is increasing, are banks taking advantage of the opportunity to charge significantly higher than what they, and quite frankly, I don't have a problem if they make a little bit of profit off of the transaction.
Everybody's gonna make money.
Everybody's all about making money. I don't have a problem with that. But when you're talking about, and 12 cents being on the high side, if you go to the low side, it's 7 cents. Against the national average of 44.
A lot of them are paying under. Is Walmart paying under 12?
I don't know.
I understand.
I'm sure they're.
When you mention negotiations, they're one big boy that
Right.
gets to negotiate.
And a lot of the big box stores get to negotiate. Now I will tell you, a lot of my members are below the 44 cent, but they're in that 32 to 38 cent range.
Are you per transaction?
Mhm.
Okay, so if I stay at one of your hotels, $100 and I'm 30 cents on that dollar.
No, the transaction.
Oh, okay.
The
on
transaction
the
when you
transaction,
pay.
okay.
Right, it's not a percentage. Now, credit cards
okay.
will be
Okay.
a percentage,
All right,
but debit
I'm
cards,
sorry. Yeah.
debit cards are a flat.
But right now, are the businesses, are they absorbing it or are they passing it along?
Well,
Or is there a mix?
it's a mix. I mean, you have to factor in everything else that's happening in our industry, and I'm sure these guys as well, unless we've all been living under a rock, we've seen what's happened with commodity prices in the first 4 months of this year. We went into calendar year 2011 thinking that we were looking at 1 to 2% annualized commodity price costs, which some of that can be absorbed. We're 4% going into May. I mean, so there's only so many costs that a business can absorb. When you're talking about a 3 or 4% profit margin, you've got impending healthcare legislation that will absolutely bankrupt my industry. I don't know about
Yeah.
y'all. I
When
mean,
you go back
Be terrible for us
to
as well.
asking if a lot of our members are absorbing the cost or if they're passing it on. In my members, the independent pharmacists, we have no choice except sometimes to absorb that cost because the pharmacy benefit managers and the insurance plans, they dictate what the reimbursement is going to be. When you walk into a drugstore and you get your prescription filled, the pharmacist is not the one who sets the price or sets the reimbursement of what you pay and what the pharmacist actually is going to be paid. The insurance company and the pharmacy benefit manager, they're the ones that set the reimbursement. So therefore, when you see all of these extra fees that you have to pay on the debit cards and everything, you have no choice except to absorb it. Sometimes it would be cheaper to look at the prescription, the empty prescription bottle, give the patient a $5 bill and maybe go, I'm sorry, we're out of it, can you go somewhere else? That's a figure of speech. None of the pharmacists are actually going to do that, but there we go. It is a proven fact that we do lose money on prescriptions because of a lot of these transaction fees.
Have you all ever, and this is just a point of inquiry, have you all ever looked at a merchant's bank statement transaction schedule for debit cards and credit cards?
Well, I talked to a petroleum guy. He's got about a dozen locations out in the middle of the state, and he says he gets a thing every year. I guess every quarter or however that comes in, maybe monthly.
Monthly.
And it's not broken down. Because I'm saying, what are you averaging? He goes, I can't tell you. He says they're giving me this and telling me this is what. This is my money.
Very hard to decipher. Very hard to decipher.
And so
That was Mr. Gresham, wasn't it?
yes,
Yeah.
I believe so. And
A great member of both of our organizations. Yes. I don't know if he does drugs or not, but I know he sells